Welcome to the channel, everybody. So, here's number 2 of the panels. Now, this one is going to be a little bit more of something that you guys are going to be interested in, but I do want to preface this one with a couple things. This is the first of 2 Q&A dev panels that they held. The first one was held on Saturday. I ended up showing up about 10 minutes late or so to the panel. So by the time I got everything set up and stuff, you'll see, obviously I don't get exactly the camera angle I want the entire time. So some of that's off. You're going to see some of the adjusting. You'll hear me adjusting tripods, things like that. But I also did miss the introductions. I am very aware that Kabam Dragon was the one hosting and moderating the panel, and obviously Kabam Crash will be one that sticks out very much so. As a matter of fact, I have a bonus question coming up at the end of the panel with him. The other thing I will say is a lot of us left the room after this panel with a lot to say, to be honest with you. I know myself and several others that I was hanging out with throughout the weekend immediately felt like it was way too softball of questions. You will hear things as easy as, who's your favorite champion in the game? These were not the type of questions that we were wanting to get answered. They were also, um, a lot of us went into it misinformed. But I will say part of the reason I want to show this is there is still very good and very valid information in this. There's a couple little fun things in this particular panel as well, including the fact that there's still a couple Easter eggs left in the game that we haven't necessarily found, and a hint for one of those. But there's also, like I said, some actual background information that I felt was very important. But as well, this led to one of the greatest things that really, I think, shaped the weekend for a lot of us. After this particular panel, I got an opportunity to sit down with Kabam Dragon and speak with her. As a matter of fact, I missed most of the major announcements of the end of the first night because after this panel, I was speaking with her and another gentleman that I'm going to allow to remain nameless only because I've never gotten his permission to necessarily quote him on some of the things that he taught me that I will be talking about a little bit more. But Kabam Dragon was very receptive when I went to her and I said, hey, it seemed very softball on a lot of the questions. These weren't some of the things that a lot of my viewers or a lot of the other YouTubers I know particularly were looking to get answered. We're just kind of wondering why that might be. And she informed me at that time that there was a box for everyone to submit questions to, that she read every question that came out of there and even was texting another member of the staff to try and find more questions because she was running out throughout the panel. That opened up a lot of dialogue between us and Kabam in that very moment, because we came to the compromise that we understood that just an open forum Q&A where we were allowed to just raise our hands and start openly asking questions was something that they understandably wanted to keep from doing because they wanted to rein in certain things and make sure that it was going to be something that they could put out publicly. But also on top of that, they were still open to hearing what we wanted to know. So that night, when I got to the meetup with everybody, the first words out of my mouth to every single person that I spoke to that night was where that question box was. That question box, I told everybody, make sure the next day when you get in, immediately grab a piece of paper, Fill out as many questions as you want, throw them in the box, let's get them answered. Not only did we get every one of those questions answered on day 2, we also were provided extra pens and paper in the room to ask additional questions. This was an amazing move on Kabam's part. It showed that they weren't avoiding things, that they were willing to answer our questions. And even afterwards, Kabam Dragon actually took a couple moments with me personally and showed me the 5 questions she skipped over and the fact that they were inappropriate questions that really did not help anyone. More so like explicit names for champions, as an example. So, I do want to preface that before we go into this, but I will say very much so, please watch this with an open mind. Also understand anything that's off a little on the audio, I do apologize for. Anything that's off on the camera angles, I do apologize for, but I still want to get this basic information out to you guys and make sure you get a chance to see it. I'll see you after the video.
Layer we do, which is we want kind of the most interesting gameplay and complexity and complexity synergies to live on the champions that have the strongest lore ties. And so if you know, oh yeah, there's this awesome pairing in the comics, you can take that pairing into the game and get the most benefit. And so that broad strokes defines kind of the quantity, and we do pick up power level for the synergies, and we'll playtest them. And then the precise balance structure, I hand it off to you, but I know what it is.
So step 1, on your web browser, you load up your information source of preference for MCOC, and you look at every synergy already available to that champion, because you may not have had to look at them recently. No, I halfway kid, but it is really a process of what else is available to this champion, either directly through synergies, through pre-fights that relate to that class, if we think of some tech or some science options, or cosmic as well, and try to break it.
So what you're saying is I'm not going to get a stronger domino?
No comment.
No.
Fair enough. Awesome. Okay, so for this question, I actually want both champion design and basically everybody to answer this one, because I think it's a great one. Looking back, is there a design decision from the early days of MCOC that you wish you could revisit now, given how much the game and the player base have evolved? Yes, you can say Hercules.
I'm not going to pick a single point, maybe out of cowardice, but there are some champions who have abilities that do not fit in with what those similar champions might try to do today, and that can make integrating that champion into the rest of the game difficult. So if we think of some champions who are old, maybe Rogue would be one example, where the abilities that she has do not play nicely with everyone else around, and it makes it harder to bring them into the rest of the game. And there are just some champions like that who, again, maybe sort of going back to the question of how do you identify a rework, sometimes that can be a good opportunity to do that. But yeah, some of those champions, being able to make them fit within the game a little bit.
I have like a boring, nerdy answer. There are spots in our damage formula that I don't like. And it's hard to describe without like knowing the code, but there's certain spots in which, like, for instance, we tabulate up all of your a champion's various defensive stats into a single rating and then convert that into a percentage, and that's what the damage reduction is. And it means they're just decisions that were made like now over a decade ago that because of that we can't create, for instance, individual anti-stats for each of those defensive ones because the formula doesn't work that way. And we could go in and change it, but changing the fundamental damage formula is about the scariest thing that you could propose in MCOC, and so we usually don't. And there's like maybe a handful, maybe like 3 or 4 only that are left. We've actually fixed a bunch of them, but yeah, there's a couple spots where we can't create new design space. We can't make champions that do interesting, really niche specific things, because that's not how the formulas worked for a decade. Anything else?
Sure. I think for me, the biggest thing, and again, I'm also not going to pick a specific moment in time. For me, I think the biggest thing, or one of the biggest things, is that we've been really good at adding to the game, but we haven't really been good at taking things out of it, right? So, very good at addition, very poor at subtraction, and I think that's really starting to show. It's creating, at times, kind of like a messy experience for players, something that's overly complicated, something that has a bunch of stuff in game that actually really isn't doing anything for anybody. Like, it's not good for the players, it's not good for us. It's a really hard cycle to break out of, and there have been times in the last couple of years where we have been able to deliver that coherent experience, but there's absolutely been times where we haven't as well. So yeah, if I could go back, I've been on the game team for just over 4 years right now. If I could travel back in time and talk to myself on day one, that's something I would say to myself is like, as you grow the game, you need to think about what that means for how complicated it is and what that means for the player experience, and you need to seriously think about how we can better integrate pieces of content together so it doesn't feel so messy and complex and enormous and over like a huge burden to players at times, right? So yeah, for me that's a big thing, and that's something that we're going to try to fix. So
Raise your hand if you remember 1v1 duels. Come on, OGs now. There we go. Yep. All right, awesome. Thank you. Are there any Easter eggs or hidden references in the game that hardly anyone has noticed, but which the team is especially proud of producing?
I don't think all of the spider ham jokes have been found yet.
You are correct. They have not.
Yeah. So there's a thing with spider ham where if you dash back twice and hold block, it'll set up a joke into the pause screen, and then when you do his SP2, which is called the punchline, the pause screen thing will change to the punchline for the joke. We did like 28 of them or something like that, and a couple of them were for champions that weren't out when Ham was out, but were going to be out in the future, so we knew it was impossible to find them all on launch. And they all got Marvel approved, which was wild. We had to cut one of them that wasn't Marvel approved. And so I don't think they've all been found. And there's a lot of change. There's one, I don't want to see, the thing is if I say too much, I know of like a lot of Easter eggs that were very funny to us at the time, and I don't think they've been found because usually like they show up on Reddit, and that's kind of it. So that's the big one there is champion Easter eggs, which still lots of.
Can you give us a hint for which, like, one of the two champions that has to be involved?
Any champion who shoots bullets.
Ooh. Okay, that's a fun hint. I like that. All right, I expect everyone to go Easter egg hunting later. I want to
across
see
all the champions that shoot bullets.
Sounds like a rough matchup.
All right. Has there ever been a champion or gameplay idea that had to be cut at the very last minute? And what led to that decision? Could it return in the future?
I don't think we cut a champion. I don't think we cut a champion at the last minute. We delayed champions before. For various reasons, production stuff, occasionally real world stuff, just like team isn't able to get certain numbers. But we've never left something on the shelf indefinitely for champions.
All right. How, this is for the production team, I'm pretty sure, do you approach designing in-game events or updates to resonate with global players who may celebrate different holidays or cultural milestones? Are there any memorable examples?
It's something that we're actually very conscious of as we plan everything from our in-game events to our marketing materials and all of that. So it's something that we actually have a lot of foresight and we plan around actively. I think my favorite examples of this would still be our tried and true Pride events. I think that they're some of the best ones that we pull together for our community. As Marvel is a very diverse group of folks, which is something that I think, again, MCOC has definitely done just a good job of.
Yeah, I will say that there are, like, our champion roadmap process has a lot of different stakeholders and a lot of different people contributing into it. Like I kind of mentioned, we have like the Pride beats, we have other beats. We try and have a good spread of representation throughout the game. We try and make sure that we're hitting all of the big Marvel, MCU, or TV show beats. There's a lot that goes into it, but we do try and make sure that we're being as broadly. If I can talk today, but we want to be very broad sweeping with the roster. We want to kind of capture a little bit of something for everyone, and that does kind of sort of synergize into letting us do big marketing pushes on specific regional level stuff.
Awesome. Sweet. Love those answers. Thanks, guys. All right. How much creative freedom do you have when developing original content or characters, and how does Marvel/Disney's input factor into design decisions?
I guess I can start kicking that one. So Marvel's a really great partner to work with. We've done a number of original champions on the contest, and you know, again, it kind of goes through like everything we sort of do with Marvel. We go through like a concept art stage where like, you know, we draw out like what we think the character will look like. We'll kind of share what we think the character's like, you know, abilities, and kit will look like. We go through like animation reviews with them, as well as kind of showing them this is what the hero will do in game, this is how it will present. But they've been an absolutely amazing partner, and we've been able to use some really awesome OG characters because of that.
Who's your favorite?
Who's my favorite OG?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a sucker. Like, I like old school guillotine.
Ooh, very nice.
On the event side of things, same thing. Marvel is very receptive to a lot of our ideas. Again, we've done a lot of holidays that are celebrated around the world, but we've also made a few of our own. And again, we kind of bounce back and forth with them, but ultimately they're a great partner to have, and they are very receptive to a lot of our original ideas.
What's your favorite event we've done?
Probably Pool's Gold.
Oh, that was so fun.
It's still probably one of my favorites.
Do you guys want to answer on the champion side or no?
Sure.
I'm not going to make you answer.
I mean, the short version for champions is that Marvel is involved every step of the way, especially when it comes to UAE champions. We are literally creating something that is under their general IP. They give us, leeway isn't the right word. It's like, because we're joining together on a collaborative process, when we get excited about stuff and have a really cool idea, it gets them excited as well, and then they help us out with some things. But yeah, end to end, the whole champ process for equal champions is Marvel's involved there.
Have they ever declined a champ?
The question was, have they ever declined a champ? I'm doing
Yeah,
this
sorry.
YouTube video.
Yeah.
Nope, you're good.
I think so, but I think it predates my time on the project. I know that there were some, like, I think they've only ever been declined really early in the concepting phase. Like, I think it was like, you know, we would provide them with a couple different concepts, and they said, you know, no to these few, keep doing explorations on those ones. Yeah. But you know, they have said no early on, basically. Yeah.
So thanks, guys. All right.
And Purgatory is my favorite.
Well, I'm just thank you for the answer. I wasn't going to make you pick, but all right. How does the team decide which iconic Marvel characters become act bosses, and what inspires their thematic or mechanical identity for each act? That's a great question. Whoever asked that, by the way.
So, the Ouroboros champs specifically, there was, I'd have to like talk to like Tyler about it, but if I recall correctly, those champs all have sort of a tempt with power fantasy going on, and so they were specifically chosen not just because they are iconic Marvel characters, but because we can tie them into the sort of like Ouroboros lore of the situation. So that's how they were mostly decided. The earlier act bosses, it largely depended on sort of just the plot for what was happening in the chapter at that time. Yeah, I think that kind of answers it.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so kind of in that same vein, but on kind of the production side, how do you approach the difficulty curve for act bosses, and what player feedback or internal data leads you to adjust mechanics, nerf phases, or revise nodes in later versions? We're all talking about champion, for those of you who don't.
Well, I can start on that one. The Axe X champion was sort of a different beast. For the newly released boss content, it is largely just a heck of a ton of playtesting and then like certain beta feedback. We go in to everything, but bosses included, with specific design goals we want about how difficult they're supposed to be, what you should be feeling in each individual phase, how hard each phase should be over the course of the fight, and we just test the crap out of it. And then if it doesn't land the way we want, then we usually try and let it sit for a little bit, because different bosses age differently, and then some don't age as well, and have difficulty curves that are too strong. Or there was the question earlier about kind of like grace and mercy mechanics. We are a lot more cognizant now than we used to be about the bosses being like key progression blockers, and if you're just stuck and you can't get past something, that's bad. We want you to feel like playing the game more, not less. And so some of that leads to the altering of bosses. Yeah.
Love that. You
Any
guys want to
other
answer from a
comments?
question perspective, or?
Yeah, I'll just add one thing, kind of on the flip side of what you just described there, and story bosses kind of need a certain level of approachability now. We were really excited for Ares because he wasn't attached to a piece of story
Yes.
content. It was separate, and so then we could say, okay, we haven't done this in a little while. How do we want to go about this? And how can we take advantage of this opportunity to present some different challenges than we have been for a while? And so that was a lot of fun in that way.
Awesome. I love that answer. All right. So personal questions. I'm going to make all of you answer. What champions are in your main roster and or your favorite champions? Mr. Champ Daddy, you're not allowed to pick all of yours as your favorites.
I never pick up.
I love Apocalypse. He's awesome. That is all.
That's a great choice.
I am still waiting for 7-star Wake.
Well, keep
That the magic? No, Vox was my first rank 4, so we'll go with Vox right now.
So for me, I have made no secret that Battlegrounds is my favorite game mode, and I think Battlegrounds is best when the meta is mostly two-way champions, because I think that drafts and just strategy of placement is much more interesting. And so if you looked at my roster, you would see that I pretty much only rank up two-way champions. So as I said this morning, I love Deathless Thanos, I love Onslaught. I do like the meta champions, but yeah, for me, it's all about the two-way champions that I can create a puzzle. Because I've only been playing for 4 years, and not an excuse, but I'm also just like not super skilled at the game. So if I want to do well in Battlegrounds, a big part of it is the strategy, right? And so that's what I like to focus on. Those are the types of champions that I like.
Well, my default answer is that I like all my children equally, and I like Hulkling the most.
I know.
Yeah, so he's always kind of to be top of my mind. I'm also a really big fan of champs that we've made that have really unique playstyles that didn't always land per se. Sandman is a great, interesting playstyle there. I feel really bad about Airwalker. Because that was mine, and he didn't end up super great. But the heavy charge to gain power, then launch a special right out of the heavy before the power goes back down, I think is super interesting, and we didn't really do much with it. I was a big fan of Purgatory forever, like before and after her buff, because of the flickering back and forth of her power bars mechanic. And I did Mr. Knight recently, and he's cool, and light punishing is a lot of fun, so I'm gonna also say Mr. Knight.
Mr. Knight is awesome. If you haven't played him, you should.
Yes.
It's very fun. All right, speaking of power bars, though, thank you for that perfect segue. I love that. What factors guided the creation of the Idols Fractured power bars, and how did the team decide on the unique power-up triggers and phase distinctions? Especially since we've seen Soulbark kick so much butt in Battlegrounds today.
That was a really, the process for gameplay design is someone has a cool idea and then you kind of just try it out and then go from there. We've tried some really busted ones in the past that didn't make their way to live because they would have upended the whole game. The Fractured Power Bar was one that it kind of hit in the sweet spot. I forget whose idea it was originally, but we thought of it as a really cool way to add differentiation to champions without, in a not catastrophically damaging kind of balance way. They are certainly stronger and they have a lot of flexibility, but it felt a lot more manageable. And then from there, it was just we iterated, and we got some prototypes, and engineering made things for us, and we moved buttons around on screen a whole lot. That was kind of that.
All right, so I know the particular designer who did this isn't in the room, but I'm still curious. What inspired the switch from more complex champion-specific battlecast relics to the streamlined stat-boosting StatCast approach, and what design challenges did that pose?
Yeah, what inspired it is that battlecasts were too complicated. Kind of straight up. They are very cool, and we got to do a lot of fun things with them for individual champions, but they were so much work. I'll hand the mic over to you from the balance perspective if we want after this, but the complexity was just through the roof, and kind of similar to synergies, but way worse. The potential impact of missing and overshooting on a power budget for a whole class is terrifying, and so when it came time to do StatCasts, we knew we wanted to put more relics into the game. That was a pretty easy decision. We all liked them, especially like strikers, we knew players liked them, but we knew they couldn't be battlecasts. And so from there was, okay, what can we do instead? And the idea kind of evolved out of that, using a lot of the existing tech, certain balance guidelines that we've got, with this fundamental thing of put more relics in the game and they can't be battlecasts.
Yeah, on that note, everything I said about synergies, battlecasts are just one extra layer on top of that. What interactions do you have to consider? Sentinel's pausing his incinerate and someone synergy makes it do more damage, those kinds of things. You can see that we had a couple different battlecast iterations to try to figure out, okay, can we go broader, should we be more specific? At some point, that can also start encroaching on other things that we do with champions, whether it's reworks, whether it is synergies, and so it was almost in kind of an unhealthy and unsustainable way, starting to take away from what we could do elsewhere. And so I think that steered us in this direction that made a lot of sense, considering that champions are not necessarily getting any simpler either. But base stats continue to be exceptionally relevant. They can impact battlegrounds, they can impact your questing, that kind of thing. And it's another form of expression. It's very simple.
Okay, important question, and I will obviously let you answer as well. I want to know which statcast do you think looks coolest? Because the answer is hoping, I'm sad you don't know that.
Statcast or relic?
I'll let you answer either. I still think the answer is hoping.
Ghost Rider looks pretty sick.
That's good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to kind of build on something that John mentioned a little bit earlier about complexity in our game, Battlecast was a little bit of a miss. Like, in a vacuum, we thought it would be okay, but when it stacked on the complexity of everything else going on in the game, players weren't really having it. Like, just from like the data side of things, we were looking at the number of players who like had Battlecasts but weren't equipping them, or had Battlecasts but weren't selecting runes, and there was like a whole bunch of just kind of like data signals that like the player base wasn't really engaging with them, and all of the feedback from like the forums and Reddit and everything was just like, this is so complex, there's like so much management here. And so a lot of our kind of focus was making these statcasts really easy, really approachable, kind of trying to shave off like the rougher edges. And I think like, the reception we've seen on the statcast so far has been a lot more positive, which is awesome to see. But yeah, it just kind of speaks to like, with a game with like MCOC that has so much different content and modes and features and everything else, like it's a challenge to try and balance that complexity because everything touches everything. So
with that, sorry, with statcasts, you can also remove the runes. Is that an intentional feature?
I'm going to repeat your question just for the YouTube video. So with the statcast relics, you can also remove the runes. Is that an intended feature?
That is a carryover from them being parented from Battlecasts. That is something that we'll look to clean up in the future, but it was lower on the priority stack. We put more of the focus on auto-equipping the runes. So like basically the only thing you had to worry about managing was just equipping them to the champion.
And you actually gave me a perfect segue into another question, so well done. How often do you guys use player data analytics to inform design or balance decision? And how heavy do you weigh those decisions?
A lot. I think maybe Aiden.
Like all, well,
or Dan.
yeah.
We love it when players use the things that are in the game. Maybe not a surprise, but as a balance designer, regardless of any other motivation, it's great when people are doing things because then we can see information about what they're doing and what the outcome of that is. Now, there's always confounds with any data, or at least with most data that you get to realistically work with kind of in the world, right? So we never want to let data tell us what to do, but we allow it to inform us. We mix that in with our design philosophies, with our own experience, with kind of what's going on in the game as well as on the team internally. And through that, the data can support more informed, more targeted decisions towards whatever we're trying to accomplish, whether that's design a new thing, whether that's change a champion, that kind of thing. So it is a tool, it is a supportive component of making good decisions.
Yeah, I have something to add to that, and this kind of goes back to something I was talking about earlier. So the answer is very much. We care about the data. We look at a lot of data. We have a really talented data science team and data analytics team that we work with. But to be honest with you, in a game like Contest, it's actually a really big challenge. So, for instance, when you think about trying to measure how players interact with content over time, it's actually not even really clear how you should slice them. And by that I mean, if I was to look at how a Thronebreaker player behaved in the game over the last 5 years, obviously it would look very different because it's a completely different group of players, right? So you can't actually bucket them by progression because the progressions are changing over time. So we do things like cohorting them and looking at percentiles of various performance and that kind of stuff. But it's actually, in a game the size of contest, that's as big as contest, that changes as much as contest, actually getting a handle on all the different types of players can actually be really tricky. But yeah, we have 2 live game data syncs every month where we basically go through all of the data for all of the content that's been in the game and talk about how we can use it to improve the experience.
What's cohorting?
Sorry, grouping players together in different ways. And you know, another really good one is like, it's actually really hard to measure player skill objectively, right? And we have different ways that we try to do this, but it's a really big challenge for sure. And you can look at things like how successfully players dex and special attack or something like that, but then like obviously the nodes that are involved in the fight impact that, and like all sorts of other stuff. So it's actually, yeah, it's a big challenge. And for me, I'm a data nerd, so it's a very fun challenge, but yeah, it's really important. But that isn't to say that you know, the voice of players isn't important as well. We have a great UXR group as well. We do player surveys, we do all sorts of focus groups as well. So yeah, trying to bring all those different pieces together to improve the experience.
And we do listen to you in your community spaces. You all see me in Discord on the regular, so, and all these guys too. So, you know, they're listening and watching. So just want to shout them out. They listen more than you think. All right, what was the main idea behind Lotan's phase management and maelstrom mechanics?
Oh my goodness. I didn't design Lotan, so this is purely off of memory. Let me see if I recall. I think the Maelstrom was largely just, I mentioned actually trigger volumes earlier on in today, and it actually kind of came out of that. Lotan was released right around when we kind of got that tech, and it made it way easier to do space-based gameplay than we ever had before. And so we had this boss coming up who we knew was going to be, you know, a corrupted version of Mjolnir that has corrupted Jane Foster. And so the kind of idea of a Maelstrom kind of storm-based gameplay just came out of that, basically. The banishment mechanic, I think that was a little bit of the Norse mythology flavoring, but also just like mystic boss flavoring of wanting to target specific effects. I mean, sort of soft associate mystic champions with these kind of controlling wizardy weirdos. Not as weird as mutants, but still pretty weird. And so that's kind of where that came from as well.
Cool, love that answer. All right, so has the popularity of recent movies or TV shows ever fast-tracked a champion's development?
Yes.
I think that would be a good one.
I don't have a whole lot more to add on that. You could maybe argue that we haven't fast-tracked things fast enough sometimes. There have been times when certain shows or characters will really pop up and be super popular, and then just because it takes us quite a while to get champions, like the dev process itself is many months long, Marvel approvals process for champions is even longer than that. We're often operating a year and a half out. And so our ability to react to super popular champions while they are popular is it's a pretty big challenge. We've done it sometimes, but you know, there's definitely been some that we just didn't get into we all talked internally, yeah, it would have been sweet to add this character when they were super popular, but we didn't have the chance then, and okay, now we're balancing them against the rest of the roadmap. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so follow-up kind of question to that. Are there any long-requested Marvel characters that you're excited to maybe add to the game?
Yes.
All right, I won't make you elaborate.
I can't. So.
I won't make you elaborate on it. So let's see here. So I know you can't say specifics, but is there anything special happening for Doomsday?
Yes. I'll hand that out to John. Well, lots of things.
Yes,
but
yes is just an acceptable
yeah.
answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know people would be curious. All right, so.
So I will say that we announced one of them today, right?
Yes.
The fact that we're moving forward with Stellar Forge, Doctor Doom, obviously, and the fact that we expect a large portion of the Marvel fan base to go insane about Doctor Doom over the course of the next year and a half had that was part of the decision.
Something else. We also have been planning for Doomsday a lot earlier. Like, I mentioned that we're usually quite far ahead of the game, but in this case, we got even farther ahead, and we did a whole bunch of cross-department, cross-discipline meetings to really try and kind of get every single group rallied behind and thinking about stuff that they could do. So,
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'm very excited about our plans. Yeah, it should be good. But to the plan ahead thing, just to be frank, you guys came all the way to Vancouver.
Yeah.
We can have an honest conversation here. It can be really challenging, right? Because the launch date of a movie isn't set in stone, and so there have been multiple times where we have had things planned, and a show or a movie has been moved, and then it's like, well, do we do it anyways? Do we move it? What do we do about the fact there's nothing there then? So we have to, spin up a new idea in the course of a couple of weeks to replace it and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, we're very excited about it. Hopefully we get to see it all next year, and it'll be great.
Awesome. All right, so you mentioned design process earlier, and I want to take a second to actually ask a question that I know I hear from the player base all of the time, which is how long does the content design process take and the champion design process? Not roadmap, just like character start to finish. How long does that normally take?
sure, I'm closer to the mic. I know these numbers. A champion is about 12 weeks end to end for just the design team. That breaks down into paper reviews and play testing, a lot of play testing, and there's also the final QA and balance passes involved in that, spotlight writing, that kind of thing. And there's little bits of buffer in there that we try and sneak in. But yeah, it's give or take about 12 weeks. But that's just the design and kind of code creation and playtesting process. The art process starts about 6 months before that, maybe 5 or 4. And so yeah, definitely 9 months ahead of the actual release date of the champion, you're in a meeting with the art team, you're like, what is this champion going to look like and do? So, and then the art team has their own separate process back and forth with Marvel. They obviously have to do the concept art and the actual asset creation and the model and the animations. And design is involved in all of those, but we're kind of brought in to help guide the process, and then the art team does the work, and then we really step in those. And then we do our 12 weeks, and then the QA process finishes, and then there's another month, and then the champion releases. So it can be close to a year at the absolute longest, but closer to 9 months most of the time.
You get to make specific requests of the art team.
Yes, to a certain extent. They have finite time, as do we all. And so there have definitely been meetings that I've been at, and I've asked for some things, and they just said, we don't have the time to do that. And then it gets into a little bit of a back and forth of, usually when a designer wants something for a champion, it's for a reason. We don't ask for things willy-nilly most of the time. And so we can get a bit of a back and forth then about, okay, let's say they weren't able to do something because the animation team in particular is strapped in a certain window and they can't do something. Okay, well, can we accomplish this with VFX instead? Or can I accomplish this purely on the code and creation side and HUD colors, that kind of thing? It's a back and forth to try and jointly achieve as many of the goals for a given champion as possible.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, events. Your turn to answer the how long does stuff take question.
So it varies a lot. Our traditional events and whatnot can take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, but things that pertain to sagas or some of our larger mode endeavors, or even new things entirely, can take upwards of a year. Again, something like we just kind of spoke today, we'll speak a little bit more with something like the Coliseum. And we've been working on that for the better part of 4 or 5 months at this point. And Fortress Assault that we started speaking about today, by the time it launches, we will probably be only.
Awesome, thank you. So in that same vein, have you ever explored crossover events with other Marvel mobile games to inspire new champion releases or skins?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. What is I want to know the answer to this. What is the wildest champion design idea the team has brainstormed, even if it never made it past concept?
Hercules.
It was going to happen eventually.
The wildest idea.
How much bleed damage did the original Carnage do?
That predates me. I don't remember that one.
I was there.
Yeah. It kind of depends on, so wild numbers are easy. You just turn all the numbers up big, they do big damage, and that feels good. So when I think of wild, it's stuff like, what's some good examples? Dracula's speed up the degen thing was super cool. It is super cool, but like that was one of those, like we're in the design review and we're sitting there and we're like, I don't know if this is legal, like if this is okay, and then he did it and it was cool. We've got other similar things that didn't make it because of like practical, like some of the stuff you can do with pre-fight and cross-fight abilities. We have some super cool ideas on those, but they don't feel good because of some of the like UI elements in those cases. It's like, if you had to list like 8 different pre-fights, and even if like, that's cool because there's a wide variety, you actually get in game and it doesn't feel as good because you're scrolling through a list and there's a bunch of like, stuff gets cut for that reason. And then there's like practical reasons, like way back when Odin's original design had him like as a kind of boss killer that could do percent max HP damage, and that didn't feel comfortable because there's no way to beat a boss that's ever better than that. You can't, no matter how big you make the health pool, Odin will always be able to kill it in a finite number of hits, and that upends the game and means we can't create more content. So stuff gets cut for that reason, even though it's super cool.
Awesome. All right. So, would you ever let a player design a champion?
We sort of have.
Kind of.
Yeah, we've done collaborations a number of times with different people on different champions. If I'm being frank, the biggest thing we worry about when letting players design champions is crushing their dreams. The design process can be pretty harsh. There was a time years ago when Ein was the lead champion designer, not Ein is his name, and a player sent in like a full kit and said, hey, can I get some feedback from the devs on this? And he said, okay, I'm going to do this, but please warn the player, I'm going to treat this in like a professional design capacity and get out my red pen and mark the hell out of it. And it was pretty brutal, but it was really good feedback. And so, and it's the like design and feedback and iteration. It's a team process. It's a skill you develop. So we absolutely would do it, but we wouldn't do it without guidance, both because we want to encourage and foster the skill in players, and then also we can't just release whatever players want in the game all the time. Sorry.
Aw, I think we're all set. No. All right, so I have one last question that's going to go to all of you, and then I want you guys to answer a question you hear the players ask regularly that relates to your role. Cool? So you can think about that for a minute while you answer this next one. What's one champion everyone thinks is good, but you secretly dislike using? Don't say Hercules.
I don't like using Dr. Doom.
Ooh, good answer.
Players like him, but I find the Doom loop can get boring, and watching SP3 too many times can be frustrating.
The skip button is a godsend.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just started playing the game at the end of when she was meta, but I am just so terrible at playing Ghost. Anytime I try, I just die somehow. So yeah, that's my answer.
I think Valkyrie, for me. I don't enjoy the hit into block playstyle. I acknowledge she's very good though.
For me, it's less a specific champion. I really don't like multi-hit champion because I will always throw my special into the defender's block.
Yeah, similar note. Quicksilver just like breaks my brain. The animations always trip me up.
Awesome. All right, so now we're going to go in reverse order. What is one question you want to answer you see the community ask related to your topic?
Let's see. Why don't things come out faster? Making games be super complicated. There's a lot that goes into like everything that we build. Again, like we go through. We have to be very considerate of everything in the game. We have a game with over 300 champions, over 1,000 nodes, years of content. like every decision that we do has this huge ripple effect on everything else. And so we have to be very considerate with like, you know, our design process, making sure we really think through everything this touches, everything it knocks onto. We have to be very considerate about all of that. Again, we take our like responsibility of stewards of the game very seriously. Like we want to make sure like the game is good and fun and enjoyable, and we don't want to like, you know, take away the special sauce. So again, like it takes a while to get there, but I think we come up with some really awesome stuff when it does come out.
Sweet, great answer.
Mine would go back to a bit what we were talking about earlier, and it's more along the lines of why don't you fix X? Or why does ABC still happen? And the truth of the matter is it's less that we are unaware of these things or that we're actively being malicious and ignoring them. And truthfully that we can only deliver so much in a timely manner. And there's so many things that I know myself and many other devs would love to go and fix today or yesterday. But the reality is that we have to prioritize what we're working on at any given time. And unfortunately, there's some things that take a little longer to address simply because of it.
So from the balance perspective, there's kind of two related notes. And I'm going to be a little bit hyperbolic in terms of what I think the theoretical question here is. But one of them is, do you play the game? And the other is, and the other is, do you read feedback? Do you read what people say about the things that you make, right? The answer to both, I hope, obviously, is yes. But for basically any piece of content that goes out, the designer that worked on that will probably be spamming refresh on YouTube, on Reddit, on the forums, on whatever, the day that it goes out, and they're going to be interested to see how people feel about it. They're going to be doing their best to interact with that in-game, whether it's opening crystals or whatever the case may be. I think it's no secret. We've hired from the community a number of times, sometimes because people can play the game as well as they can, among other things, obviously. But we have a lot of people who are very passionate about this game, either because they picked up that passion after they joined, or in some cases because they picked up that passion and that led them to wanting to join. So this game is important to a lot of people.
Yeah, I was basically going to say the same thing Ty did, but I'm just going to add on to that a little bit, is that there are often questions about things like quality of life improvements we could make, and the answer is often that we just can't do it for various technical reasons. And it's funny because like whenever we hire new people to the team, they come in and they ask the same questions. So I remember one of the first questions I asked was like, well, why can't we just set it up so that like there's a help all button? And someone, I don't know, might have been Charles, was just like, because it would crash our server for sure. And there's just a lot of that. So, but yeah, there's time, there's technical limitations. But yeah, but we do want to move things forward. We are upgrading our infrastructure to be able to do some of these things. I think we actually just launched auto open, right? We've had that feature on the dev team testing it for 2 years, something like that. Yeah, more than that. And that's how long it took us to gain confidence that we could launch that without it having like a major negative impact on the experience and causing disconnects and that kind of stuff. So that's one of the reasons why things happen so slowly.
Awesome, thank you.
Before I answer my question, I want to touch on something Neuro said, which is feedback is important, but positive feedback is very important. We obviously hear a lot of the negative, and that is its own special thing. But when you like something, it's easy to just like it and then not tell us, because that's kind of the default human reaction. If you tell us, then we'll do more of it. I've said this a couple times in like certain discords, but like when you like a champion mechanic or an event or a certain fight or something, and then you tell us, that's super clear. Ah, yes, they liked that. They actually said something positive. We will gladly do more of that. So
best time ever.
Yeah, stuff like that.
For sure.
To answer the question, I think one of the big questions the champ design team gets is like, are you going to add certain champion, Lasher, Craven, Stormbreaker, Thor, Worthy, Captain America, Mystique, yeah. Or like it's like, when are you going to add those, or are you going to add them? The simplest tech does sometimes come to play into that. Like we don't feel that we can do a champion. Like we couldn't have done Dust years ago because she would have melted phones. And so there is that element there. But the biggest factor there is that we only get 23 full proper champ release spots in a given year. That sounds like a lot, but there are a lot of Marvel characters out there, and then we also run through the filter of, okay, which classes are we releasing when? We try to not do 3 Mystic champs in a row like we did that one time when Dr. Doom came out. We run it through that. We already like touched on events, like what Marvel beats are happening, but also like what real world events are happening. Sagas are a thing now we also try and factor in. And so there are a wide variety there are a ton of champions that we would love to add, and it's really a matter of which 23, which is only a small percentage, kind of bubble up to the sort of percent every year. And we're really aware of the requests. I mean, like, Blizzard is coming out and has been requested for a super long time. And it's sometimes a matter of just, they're on the short list every year, and then they just get cut for some reason, and then they are on the short list the next year, they get cut for some other reason. And so we can't communicate, obviously, the champions we cut. And so that's kind of the answer there, is that there's too many champs we want to add, and that's why some champions don't get added quick enough.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, guys. Let's give a round of applause for all the devs. It's not the easiest thing in the world to stand up in front of everybody and face your most burning questions. So thank you, guys. If you have questions that did not get answered, because I'm sure there are more, we still have a question box, and there is another dev Q&A tomorrow. However, we are ending this panel. These guys do need water and a break because they have been standing up here for an hour. But thank you all for your questions. We hope that you got some answers to some of the burning questions, but we're always open for more. So thank you, guys. Please head out that door.
Real quick, one of the things that you brought up that has actually came up big in my chats and my alliance. You mentioned the fact that you guys are really great about putting things into the game, but really bad about taking things out of the game. Are we looking at doing more of that? You know, I know one of the things when you guys announced Radiance, you guys announced the idea that it would be the new currency and it would replace every other currency. And yet we still, since the release of Radiance, have seen more increase of the other currencies and no real transition away from it.
Yeah, so just to be clear, we never said Radiance was going to replace all of the currencies in game.
Okay.
The intent was always for Radiance to replace the ranked rewards and modes. So you saw in Battlegrounds, we took the trophy.
What we shoot for these days is
Good job. We took the trophy tokens out of the ranked rewards and put Radiance in, but the trophy tokens remain in the victory track, right? Because that's not competitive. So as I mentioned this morning, right now we're working on a consolidation project where we're going to take what I consider to be the engagement-based currencies, which are glory, trophy tokens, loyalty to some extent, incursions artifacts, and consolidate those into a single currency as well.
Okay, awesome. I really appreciate that. I appreciate the time letting me ask an extra question and everything. You know, I've got quite a few more, but obviously, you know, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you guys have multiple things you got to go do. I do want to thank you for a couple of years ago when you guys came down to Seattle and actually hung out with us. The information you gave us at that point in time, some of that I would like to talk about a little bit more, but I don't want to take up too much of your time right now. But I do thank you overwhelmingly. Welcome back, guys. Okay, like I said, you got simple things in there. You got great things in there. Definitely a couple things that they were talking about. As a matter of fact, I will say right there towards the end, when they talked about the open all button and how it's been in the game for a while, some of you who have been around since the beginning of my channel 3 years ago, which we're celebrating the anniversary this Saturday night, which when this video comes out should be tomorrow. One of the things that actually got me some notoriety on the forums was people noticed me having the open all button because I had the beta for it. And I've had the beta for it for the entire 3 years of the channel. So when it came out as a new thing for everybody, I had already had it for a while. So, but anyways, like I said, guys, this is just the first Q&A. So please bear with things and understand. If there's other questions that you want asked and things, feel free to check out both videos and leave comments on those videos so that I can make sure that when I talk to members of Kabam in the future, no matter if it's through Discord or a live meetup like the one that we'll be doing again this year, well, this coming year. We're looking springtime for the Seattle area here, which hopefully we'll get another couple members of the Kabam staff to come down again, and we can all hang out, have a great time, get some more questions answered. But until then, guys, leave those questions in the comments. I'll store them up, and I'll get them answered as I can. Until then, guys, I hope everybody has a great day, a great night, and pulls a God tier champion soon. I love you guys. Peace out.